All right, Madam Secretary.
President Heminger.
Okay, yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, sorry, yes.
Okay, I'm having some tech issues and I'm in a really loud environment, so I'm going to do my best. Let's go ahead and get started. Today is Monday, July 15th. The time is 7:04 p.m. This is the July General Membership Meeting of the NAACP Arlington Branch. Madam Secretary, could you please call the roll?
We have President Heminger, who's present. First VP James Younger.
Present.
Second VP Laurel Langhorne. I'm Secretary Wanda Younger, present. Assistant Secretary Kathleen McClaney.
Present.
Treasurer Adriana Spain.
Present.
At large, Nadia Conyers. At large, Kelly McBeth. At large, Karen Nightingale.
Present.
Communications, Leah Matterall. Criminal Justice Legal Redress, Amy Stitzel, I believe will not be with us this evening. Economic Labor and Development, Gary Gaston.
Present.
Education, Tia Alfred.
Present.
Environmental and Climate Justice, Julia Spain.
Present.
Health Committee, Tasia Iglesias. Housing Chair, Wells Harrell.
Present.
Political Action Chair, Jan Marie Pena.
Present.
Religious Affairs, Pastor Davis. Religious Affairs, Rosa Dunkley.
Present.
That concludes the roll call.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And Sister Dunkley, since you're on, could you open our meeting in a word of prayer, if you wouldn't mind?
Dear Heavenly Father, we come this evening, Father God, to say thank you, Lord God, for this day. Thank you, Lord God, for each and every person that's on Zoom on tonight, God. Father God, we ask, Father God, that you would be in this meeting, Father God. Father God, I ask that you would be with the presidents and the first and second vice, Father God. And that everything that we've done, said, decent and in order. This is my prayer in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sister Dunkley.
Welcome.
I appreciate that. At this time, I am seeking a motion from a member to suspend the rules. Our national organization has put forth a very specific way that they'd like our branches to conduct meetings, but we have a different agenda tonight. And so in order for us to move forward, I would like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
Mr. President, I move that we suspend the rules for tonight's meeting.
Thank you,
I
Madam
second.
Assistant Secretary, and thank you, Sister Dunkley. There's a motion on the floor. It's been properly moved and seconded. That is to suspend the rules. Is there any further discussion? Any questions, any comments? Okay, hearing none, all those members in favor of that motion, would you please say aye?
Aye.
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 And all those that oppose, you have the same right? Any members abstaining? Okay, great. Let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to go ahead and turn the floor over to our treasurer. Madam Treasurer, would you please present the June financial report?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to share my screen, so just 1 second. Okay, everyone can see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, good evening, everyone. This is the June financial report for the branch. For our operations account, we had $1,111.34 in the deposit transfers. Sorry about that. Stop, Napoleon. I'm so sorry. One second.
That's okay. Life happens.
My dog just be crazy. I'm I'm sorry, I'm gonna start over if you don't mind. For the month, this is the financial report for the month of June. In deposits, in our operations account, we had $1,111.34. And withdrawals of $1,972.84. Our balance in our operations account is $8,465.53. There's no change to our reserves account. And in our scholarships account, we had a deposit of $529. Our ending balance is $225,000, $352.04. And that is the report for June.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. Would anyone like to make any motion?
I would like to make a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented, the June treasurer's report as presented, subject upon any audits and corrections.
Great.
Second,
There's a motion. Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. It's been moved by the secretary and seconded, it sounds like, by Sister Dunkley to accept the June financial report as presented, subject to audit. Is there any further discussion, any questions, any comments, any concerns? Any questions on the June financial report? Okay, hearing none. Will all those members in favor of accepting that report as presented and subject to audit, would you please say aye?
Aye.
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 And any members opposed, please say nay. Any members abstaining? Great, hearing none, I believe that's a unanimous vote. I'm gonna go ahead and move us to the next agenda item. We'd like to recognize the elected officials that are with us. We know it's summer break and a lot are away, but Madam Commonwealth Attorney, you are with us this evening. Would you like to say a couple words to the membership tonight? All right,
Hi,
she may have
everyone.
stepped away. We'll come back to, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. As always, it's an honor to have been a very long time member of the NAACP. I remember when we were meeting in the Sunoco building in the museum way back when there wasn't even like air conditioning in that building. So it's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Madam Commonwealth Attorney. I believe that is all of the elected officials that are with us this evening. If others join later, we'll be sure to recognize them. Okay, we have a very short meeting tonight, but an important meeting. So I want to kick us off with a conversation from Miss Sandra Fortson. I believe you're with us. Are you with us, Miss Sandra?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. So thank you so much for being with us. I wanted to give you an opportunity to just address the membership. Tell us a little bit about what's going on at, or what's been going on at 1802 Columbia Pike. And then I have some questions that I'd love to ask you. And then if our members have any questions as well, feel free to drop them in the chat or just go ahead and raise your hand to be recognized. So I'm gonna read just a quick intro and then feel free to tell us a little bit more about yourself as well. So for those of you that haven't been following 1802 Columbia Pike, Ms. Fortson challenged Arlington County to prevent officials from acquiring property at 1802 Columbia Pike that has belonged to her family for decades. County officials plan to take the property through eminent domain in order to build safety improvements on nearby roads. The board directed county staff not to acquire the home by eminent domain to negotiate the purchase of 2 easements from the conservator who is here with us this evening. So, Ms. Fortson, would you mind just telling us a little bit about who you are and then maybe anything you'd like to share about the property?
Yes, I will. Okay, I am, of course, my name is Sandra Fortson. I am, I'm a retired Army JAG, that's lawyer. And I am also retired from the federal government. So finally, totally retired. I am the cousin of the owner of the property at 1802 Columbia Pike. I am her conservator. I became her conservator after a serious incident that occurred at the house where there was a carbon monoxide incident, and the sister died, and my cousin became totally incapacitated. And that was in 2021, January 2021. I have been fighting my cousin, as Mike stated, the property has been in the family. As far as the records I was able to obtain goes back to 1950s when my aunt married my uncle Ellsworth Newman, but he owned the property when she married him. From what I can gather, the property was more than likely had been in his hands or that his family's hands since the 1920s. But the county had approached me about purchasing the property, and I was adamant that I wasn't going to sell it. And they proceeded to tell me that if I didn't sell it, they would just, initially they were talking about eminent domain. And when I refused to sell, I kept saying I wasn't going to sell it. They said, well, we'll take it by eminent domain. And then another lawyer got involved with the county, and she came and said, well, if you don't sell it, then we can just take it. We can condemn the property, and we don't even, you won't even get a hearing. We'll just take the property. I've been actually dealing with the issue with them for, it was over a year. I think I started sometime last year, just going back and forth. And so with the help of NAACP and the community, the neighbors, there were a lot of the neighbors sent letters to the board. They decided that they would hold off, they actually rescinded their decision that they were going to take the property, and they agreed to an easement, which is what they had agreed. They had already discussed with my cousins before the accident. It was going to be an easement. So they have now agreed to an easement, to actually a permanent easement on Columbia Pike, and on Roth there will be, and there will also be like a temporary easement. And we signed off, actually we met at the property last Friday, my attorney, transportation from the county, the engineer from the county, and also couple of the attorneys from the county. And the whole purpose was for them to place stakes in the yard, because I wanted to specifically see where the stakes were going to be and how much of the property they would be taking. So they were able to explain everything, and I was able to ask questions, and my lawyer asked questions, and we request clarification on some things. And so, and then I went to his office, and I did sign off on the papers giving them the easement. Do I trust them? No. I don't. I've heard some rumors that they're not too happy with what happened, but I did want to attend this meeting just to thank your organization and the community, because I do know for a fact that had no one else gotten involved, it would never, they were going to find a way of taking that property. So I thank you with all my heart. I really appreciate you guys stepping in and assisting with this issue, because it certainly would never have happened. They would have taken the property in the eminent domain issue. We would not be, they would never have agreed to that, because from what my lawyer told me, and he's been on several eminent domain issues with the county, is that they don't like to lose, and they usually don't change their mind once he said they dig their heels in. And so it was with the help of your organization and the neighborhood association and the neighbors that I was able to accomplish what I did accomplish. And I again extend my thanks. I thank you very much for stepping in and assisting.
Of course,
I'm open to any questions.
Yeah, we'd like to thank you and the courage that you had to dig your heels in and to stand up for what's right. And so, members, if you have questions for Ms. Fortson, I encourage you to drop them in the chat or raise your hand. I do have a couple that I'd like to just kind of go through with you. We talked a little bit about the background and how we kind of got here. Tell us and our members what historical significance did this home have for your family, but also for the Black community in Arlington?
It's very important to me, because that is one of the that house is one of the few houses that remains of Black-owned homes. And for me, that's significant, as well as the fact that it's generational wealth. If you look at what they were offering, they were lowballing, as they usually do. And so that was another issue, is that they were trying to get the property for less than its value. But the property is very significant, because I would like for my cousin, one of the issues is tried to get my cousin back into her home. I am not an advocate of putting family members in nursing homes if it can be avoided. Sometimes it can't be avoided, but so what we're working on is renovating the home and getting my cousin back into that home, because her family, that's the only house she's ever lived in. And her family they lived in that house together. It's the only family that I'm aware of that has ever lived in that house. So there is generational, the generational wealth, the generational significance of having the property, and also the historical property of making sure that it's a black, that was at one time an all Black neighborhood. And now there's very few African Americans that remain in that neighborhood. And so I didn't want them to erase us from there. I think that it's so easy for us as African Americans, especially if we don't have money, to just give the property and sell it. And what we find, though, when we leave those properties, just as they did in DC, you end up somewhere, and it's usually not a better situation when you leave. So, but it's important to me. The history behind is very important. And I actually fought for that property because I know what it meant to my aunt and uncle, and the fact that they had worked so hard back in that era, how difficult it was for African Americans to maintain property. So that was why it was so significant for me to fight. And the fact that my cousin is incapacitated, and I thought they were taking advantage of that fact, and couldn't fight for herself, and not knowing, although I'm a lawyer, I am not an eminent domain lawyer, but I'm smart enough to know that I was smart enough to know that I needed someone with that expertise to fight them.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a couple things you touched on that I want to unpack, including, the lowball offer that the county gave to you. It's a systemic issue. It happens across the nation. It's happening across the Commonwealth. And as progressive and forward thinking as we like to think our community is, it happened right here in our community as well. And so it's an issue that we're going to continue to work on. I wanted to talk to you briefly about generational wealth in the Black community. Talked about that briefly, but tell us and our members, for those that don't know, how do folks typically accumulate wealth, and why was this home so important as it relates to keeping wealth in the Black community?
I think this is happening across the nation, and it has happened in the past. I mean, most of us, if we follow the news, we followed the story of the 92-year-old Black lady. I think it was in Alabama, where they were taking her land. It had been in her house since slavery or after slavery, but for centuries, I think. And so I thought the story in California, where the beach that they had taken that land from a Black family, and they recently were able to get the land back. It is the reason Blacks, a lot of times we cannot accumulate wealth, is because we have no land. Land is money. Land is significant for, for instance, using a house as equity to get another house, or as you see a lot of the immigrants are doing now, they'll stay in one house and then they'll use that other one house for equity and get another one. But it's a way of accumulating wealth. The land, we're not getting any more land in this world. So it's so important to maintain the land. And the reason Blacks have not accumulated a lot of wealth is we're so quick to get rid of our properties, and or we lose our properties. It's taken. A lot of times it's losing. And if you're not, it's not that people aren't smart. You either have, you may not have the intellect to know how to fight, or you may not have the money, because it's not cheap. And the government they have a lot more on their side because they're deep pockets. So, but the wealth, it comes from maintaining the property and keeping the property. I own the house that I bought in law school when I was 25 years old. And they're actually gentrifying that area in Ohio now, and I will not sell that land, and I keep getting offers. It has quadrupled in property. So that's to show you what happens with land. It will increase the value. The value increases over time. And if it doesn't, the other thing that I've always maintained with the house that I have in Ohio is that my family members will always have a place to go if something happens. Something happens and somebody needs a place to stay. There is a house, I have a couple houses there that family members can use. So that's what's important to me. I don't sell properties. If I can, unless it's really needed or necessary, because if you're smart, you really realize you can actually take the equity out of the house and use it if you need some extra money. You don't have to sell your properties. And that's one of the things that we as a people have to begin to understand, and we have to educate our people about not selling those properties.
Yeah, I agree. And I appreciate the depth and context that you're able to provide in such a short amount of time. So I hope our members were paying attention and taking notes. There were so many good nuggets that were just dropped. For those of you that don't know, Black Americans have accumulated 1/10 of the wealth that white Americans have. And so when you think about closing that wealth gap, we can start with property. And if we can't do it in Arlington, Virginia, I have doubts that we'll be able to do it anywhere else. I did see a question in the chat, but before I get to that, I want to just ask you, you know, I have two more questions, but the first one is, you know, what would have been lost had you not chosen to fight this? If you had just said, you know what, I'll take the lowball offer. I'm gonna just go ahead and let you all, you know, either take the lowball offer or just take the home. What would have been lost by you doing that?
Let me begin by saying that at one point I did consider, because I had lost when I had the incident with my cousins. And I know I've shared this with you before. And I lost my one cousin in January, and then Karen, the other cousin, Karen, became incapacitated. That was in January. I lost my sister in February of 21, so a month later. And then my husband of more than 30 years, I lost him in May. So I went through 3 deaths, and I'm dealing with not only, there was some other funny stuff that happened with the house where I had to save it. And so I'm dealing with all these issues and trying to deal with these estates. And at one point I was so devastated and so tired. And then on top of that, I had a military injury, a total knee replacement as a result of my service to the military. And so during that same period, so I thought about, at one point I did tell them I'll think about it. And I thought about it, but my heart wouldn't let me. And what I felt would be lost. First of all, my cousin Karen is not dead. She is still alive. She's still vigilant. And I really think it would, if it would break her heart to know that that house had gotten sold. I think that it's important. I would love to get her back in her home, because I think that that would be very important for her care and for her improvement, to be back in the home that she grew up in. So I think that would have been lost, because I wouldn't have been able to do that. Of course, the generational wealth would be lost. The fact that now you're kind of just getting rid of all the African Americans in the neighborhood, because I think that presence is extremely important. So you would have lost one of the few Black families in the neighborhood. And I also think what people fail to realize is if they can do it to one, they can do it to the others. That's one of the most important facts I tried to tell people. That, for instance, there was one Black lady, one of the guys that was helping me, he was distributing the flyers about the eminent domain. And there was one Black lady, that older Black lady, he said, around the corner from the house, who said, why don't she just give them the house? And he said, and he asked her, well, would you give them your house? And he said, and especially if would you give them your house for less than what it's worth? And then she said, oh no. Then he said, well, why would you even say that? Why don't they give the house? So I think sometimes people don't think that that could happen to them, but I can tell you in my experience, anything, once they get away with it and they get away with it and they feel that there's nobody that can, they think they're unstoppable. And they could have come after the rest of not only, it may not just be the African-American families, it should be some of the other families as well in the neighborhood. So I think that this was an issue for all the neighbors to jump on, and realizing that this could happen to them. So you would have lost the Black presence. You would have lost I would have lost generational wealth. Karen would have lost her home, and her ability to go back in that home and hopefully get rehabilitated there. And it's just a spiritual thing for me. There's something I think when a family has a presence in a home for years, there's a spirituality, something spiritual that goes away. Because I feel it when I'm at that house, I still feel the presence of my relatives in there. And I really it would have been easier for me to give up, to be honest, based on everything that I was going through. But my heart wouldn't allow me to do it. And I'm telling you, with all the things on my plate, and I was still working at the time, so I hadn't retired. And I'm still working and still trying to fight the city, the county. To me, it's just so important. I think also for people to know, because there are other people that this has happened to, that there are alternatives and there are ways to fight. And sometimes it has to be a public fight, because the legal fight was probably not going to be as helpful. We may, because we weren't going to get that opportunity. If they would have condemned the property, they would have started the work, and they would have probably torn the house down immediately or done whatever they wanted to do. So we would not have gotten the opportunity to even have a hearing. And so pretty much everything would have been lost. But people need to realize that there are alternatives that when this happens to them. And I think the biggest thing is for the community and for the organizations that have some authority to assist.
Incredible words of wisdom. We did get a question from a member. It says, and I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer, but it says, would you please clarify what the permanent versus temporary easement will look like on both Columbia Pike and Wall Street? Is that finalized yet, or are they still working on it?
That's a good question, because that was one of the major questions I had. I wanted to know, and I still didn't get the most clear answer from them. The permanent easement is the actual taking of the property, so they will build the sidewalk, and it's a small portion of the property that they will use, and that will be permanently become the county's property. It's going to be part of the sidewalk. The temporary easement is where they will can or might have to do some digging, but that they're not taking that land. That land still remains Karen's, and it still remains the property. And the only thing they're doing is temporarily using it. So that's the difference. But the main question I had, which is why I think that was a great question, because my big question was, how long is temporary? And that's the question that I didn't get a lot of clarification on, because if you know, these projects tend to slow down, or they get interrupted, and I said temporary this could be indefinite. However, I think the one thing, and I had to confer with my lawyer, and he felt comfortable signing the easement without any extra language in there about what is temporary. But what I did have a witness there, and I asked that question, and they said the temporary should be, it probably wouldn't go over a year. It could go 2 years, but it's at the end of the project, the temporary is over. But the question is how long the project is going to last.
Excellent question. Do any members have any other questions for Ms. Fortson? Okay, I'm not hearing none. I have one final question. I'll bring us to a close. And, we do have a lot of people traveling, so we're missing quite a few folks tonight. We're going to send out a link to this recording to a few thousand people on our list. What advice do you have for others who may be at risk of losing their property in the future? We're going to memorialize this on YouTube as well. So what advice would you give to someone that might be in a similar situation in the future?
I would first, I guess my first thing is prayer, because I did pray. But with prayer, of course, you have to have deeds. So, but I would also state that you have to try to get the support of your neighbors, because I think that was the first thing. is to get the support of the neighbors. And I'll just say what I did, and hopefully this will help anyone else that has this issue. I went to Staples and I put up signs around the house so that vehicles coming by the house would see that there was a eminent domain being in process. So I put up signs. I put out posters. I went to the county board to object to the taking. I actually, the signs actually brought in people who assisted me and they directed me. And there were people who actually contacted the news for me. And that was as a result of the signs. I think my advice is you gotta shame them and let them and you gotta bring it out in the open, because a lot of this stuff is done behind the scenes, especially pertaining to minorities. They will do a lot of these taking the properties, and especially with a lot of elderly people who don't know what to do. But the first thing is bringing it out in the open and letting them know that. And you have to be adamant. Once I made my mind up, I'm not selling, then you have to be very adamant that you're not going to sell. And one of the things I told them when they said they would take the property, I said, if you take it, I'll fight you. And so you have to let them know that you will be fighting. This is not going to be an easy take. Even win, lose, or draw, at least you fought. But I think, and then the news did wonders when the newspaper articles and the news reports on TV, that did wonders, because I had people contact me about it, and they were contacting the county. It was as a result of that publicity, I think that really, and then the letter from the NAACP, I think ultimately they realized we weren't going to do this quietly. It wasn't going to go as quietly as they thought. So I think that that's one of the things that people have to bring it out in the open. You got to get the news involved. You got to get as much publicity out of it as you can. But it is not. It's not easy, because it was a lot of work, and it was very mind-boggling, very difficult. It took a lot out of me, I can tell you. So and if you can get a team or at least get some assistance, I had some assistance from my niece in Ohio. She drafted up. So if you can elicit the assistance of even family members, because my niece does a lot of drafting, and so she drafted up the design for the posters and for the handouts. So I think but the biggest thing is getting your community involved. I think and the neighbors, and asking your neighbors, because my neighbors did write letters for me. And I shouldn't say my neighbors, but the neighbors of Columbia Pike, because
Okay,
I don't think they would care about my neighbors. I'm in Maryland, so.
Great lessons that we will certainly memorialize. Before I bring us to a close on this topic, Ms. Fortson, I would be remiss if I didn't first thank you for your service to our country and all that you've done. I think that you've demonstrated to our community, our county, and so many others unimaginable strength and resilience. And I have no doubt that your story is going to continue to inspire others to do what they can to fight for their family's property too. I think that you're a role model and an inspiration. I want to thank you for all that you did. You did most of the work. When you came to us, we knew exactly what we were going to do. And I just thank you for having the strength to kind of get the ball down the field as far as you did. In AACP, I tell everyone, and this is a lesson from our past president, but we advocate, agitate, and when necessary, we litigate. And so the letter that we sent to Arlington County is really just the first in a series of steps that we're going to take. And it's not over until it's over. What we want to know is why the county board voted in March unanimously to take the property, only in May to rescind that vote and not take the property. We also know that Arlington County is on the record saying that they will never use eminent domain along Langston Boulevard, a northern part of the county, but they will use eminent domain in one of the few historically Black neighborhoods in Arlington. So we did send a FOIA to Arlington County. We did get a response. We have seen some discrepancies that we have some questions about. So we'll continue to follow up on that. We want to know why the house was underappraised, among other things. And we want to do what we can to solve this at the root issue to make sure that another family doesn't have to go through what you went through. In speaking about housing, I know our housing chair will share another important update as it relates to ending exclusionary zoning and building Black generational wealth. So Ms. Fortson, I want to thank you on behalf of our executive committee and our membership for all that you did. And I want to thank you for being here this evening. Like I said, I have no doubt that you're going to continue to impact people in a positive way. So thank you so much.
I'd like to just add one more thing. If I can assist anybody else that is that has that issue, if that issue comes up, I am available and I will assist them in any way that I can, because that's very important that we move forward when instead of me keeping the knowledge, if I can get involved in someone else's issue who is having an eminent domain issue, then please have them contact me.
Thank you for continuing to make yourself available. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move us to the next agenda item, and that is an update on the Marcus Alert implementation. We're going to hear from Tiffany Jones. So I'll tell you a little bit about Tiffany, and then I'll hand the floor over to you. Tiffany Jones is the Marcus Alert Coordinator for Arlington County's Department of Human Services. She is responsible for the development, implementation, coordination, oversight, and monitoring of the requirements of Virginia's Marcus Davis Peters Act within Arlington County. As Ms. Jones would say, she is ensuring a collaborative effect and partnership between first responders and behavioral health. Ms. Jones has a passion for her extensive knowledge of seeking restorative justice. One of her greatest accomplishments was being the first clinical intern to implement a case management services function at Columbus Community Legal Services, which has provided clinical opportunities for graduate social work students at the Catholic University of America. Tiffany, thanks so much for being here with us, I should say. I know you have been busy. We had the opportunity to grab lunch together recently, and I'm just really inspired that by all that you're doing. It's almost a one-woman show, and you're really showing us the power of women, and you're showing us what's possible. So thank you in advance. I want to turn the floor over to you.
Well, first and foremost, thank you, sir, for having me join today, and thank each and every one of you present with us virtually for the opportunity. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, Mike, if you don't mind. Okay. So what is Marcus Alert? Marcus Alert is Arlington County's strengthened behavioral health crisis response system. The Marcus Alert system was influenced due to the enactment of the Marcus Davis Peters Act, which was in remembrance and honor of Marcus David Peters. He was a 24-year-old Black biology teacher who was shot and killed by law enforcement in 2018 when having a behavioral health crisis. So in response to that, Governor Northam enacted the Marcus David Peters Act, which now requires each locality in the state of Virginia with over 40,000 residents to implement the Marcus Alert System by 2028. So I am pleased to announce that we have officially implemented the Marcus Alert System this July 1, along with Loudoun County and Alexandria City. Overall, all of the localities within Region 2 have successfully implemented Marcus Alert thus far. So essentially, the purpose of the legislation is to ensure that when someone is having a behavioral health crisis, whether it's related to mental health, substance use, or any form of disability, they receive a behavioral health and compassionate response. And so we do that through various approaches, not only through our in-place protocols and procedures that ensures equitable and access to services, but also through other efforts such as our crisis intervention training that our first responders are attending to essentially learn how to provide that compassionate behavioral health response. So with the implementation, it requires many different processes. For example, it takes teamwork. So I am the Marcus Alert Coordinator for Arlington County with the Department of Human Services, but it really takes a lot of effective communication, collaboration, and partnership to actually carry out this system. And so with that being said, we have over 80 stakeholders within the Marcus Alert stakeholder group that consist of all individuals, some who are on this call, DHS liaisons, members from VHC. We have criminal justice professionals. Parissa is on the stakeholder group, as well as Mr. Heminger and Ms. Younger. So essentially like-minded individuals that essentially wants to pour into the community and make sure that everyone is adequately served. Along with that, it also required a lot of collaboration with our regional partners as well as our local partners. But in terms of regionally, with the Marcus Alert System, considering that it is a mandated system within the state of Virginia, I was required to compile a Marcus Alert local plan, which essentially highlighted all of the processes and procedures of the system and how we carry it out, highlighting it from how we triage calls to determine the best response for when an individual is experiencing a crisis. It also highlighted all of our updated research and discovery, where essentially we look at the demographics and services sought within our community to see where the gaps and barriers are within our system. And with this Marcus Alert local plan, it required the approval of the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, DBHDS. So I am pleased to announce that that plan was approved, which is why we were able to carry out the system starting July 1. So as I mentioned, the system, the overall mission is to ensure that not only do we increase the availability of, but the access to racially responsive crisis supports. So we are all here today. We are all aware of the different things occurring within our society that is essentially withholding individuals from thriving, not just mentally, but from a holistic standpoint as well. And so basically bridging those gaps between the behavioral health system and the criminal justice system will essentially address some of those systemic issues. So how do we carry out our system? The framework of Marcus Alert is someone to talk to, someone to respond, and somewhere to go. So I always like to say it always starts at the ECC, which is our Emergency Communication Center, also known as 911. So from the moment an individual calls 911, our call takers and dispatchers have been trained for over a year on essentially how to triage a call to determine the best response. They have received education on mental health and psychotic disorders. They have received de-escalation tactics, as well as learning how to provide trauma-informed care. They were also able to apply these skills through role-play scenarios, which essentially allowed them to actually practice how they will carry out the system. Prior to implementation, it was also arranged for them to do a 988 soft launch, which gave them the opportunity to essentially transfer calls to 988 to get a better idea of the process prior to implementation. So from the moment you call 911, as I mentioned, they are readily trained to know how to best serve you. And that also includes them taking those extra skills that they have learned and applying it to their critical thinking skills to determine if a call is appropriate for 988, which is the Regional Crisis Call Center. Within this region, HopeLink Behavioral Health, formerly PRS Crisis Link, manages all of our 988 calls. So essentially, Arlington County and the Regional Crisis Call Center 988 has an agreement in place so that we can transfer calls to them and track those calls on a monthly basis. And we also have it highlighted within our agreement that in the event that 988, the Regional Crisis Call Center, determines that an individual needs local services, so meaning the crisis has escalated and it requires a more immediate in-person response, then they will communicate that with 911 so that 911 can properly dispatch the appropriate services. In addition to that, as always, emergency services is also readily available to provide telephone support. In terms of someone to respond, we have our newly mobile outreach support team effective July 31st of last year. Most has done exceptional work since coming on board. They have responded to over 500 individuals within the community. They have an impressive response time in terms of 13 minutes. So they are responding to individuals within 13 minutes of them receiving that dispatch. They are dispatched through a dispatch radio, so therefore they can communicate not only with the ECC 911, but also with our local partners, such as fire, as well as law enforcement. In addition to that, emergency services is also capable to go out into the community to respond to more higher level behavioral health crises that requires that additional support of initiating an emergency custody order to ensure that that individual is diverted if appropriate. In addition to our local teams, we also have an agreement with our regional mobile teams. So these teams consist of CR2, Community Regional Response. Just a fact, we actually in Arlington County DHS, we manage the CR2 contract. In addition to CR2, we also have a partnership with REACH. So both of these regional teams, they are 24/7. They can come to an individual wherever they are. And essentially, they both have different specialties. So CR2, even though they provide support for all, they have a niche of providing that additional support to children. Whereas REACH, where they provide support to individuals with any form of disability. So along with CR2 and REACH, effective December 15th of last year, the Regional Crisis Call Center started dispatching regional mobile teams for in-person responses if deemed appropriate. And so therefore, we also have the ability to dispatch those regional mobile teams that are also in agreement with the Regional Crisis Call Center. In terms of the last piece of the framework, somewhere to go, located here at Sequoia Plaza, we have our Crisis Intervention Center, which consists of 5 calming rooms for individuals to come up to 23 hours to stabilize, get medical treatment in terms of taking the time to identify and properly assess what it is that they need, not only just in that moment, but also from a longevity standpoint. So making sure that they're linked to additional services. So we like to essentially identify the CIC, the Crisis Intervention Center, as a safe and alternate destination. Over the past couple of months, we have been increasing our numbers of police doing drop-offs at the CIC, as well as fire, and in addition to that, most as well, if appropriate. So essentially making sure that we are diverting individuals, making sure that they are not getting incarcerated or going directly to the hospital. So that is what the CIC's purpose is for. In addition to that, within the region, we have crisis stabilization units. And then some of you on this call may be aware of VHC Health expansion, which they will break ground fall of 2025. And it will be located at 601 South Carlin Springs Road and will consist of over 90 psychiatric beds. So that will essentially open up more opportunities to ensure that when individuals are in crisis, they actually have somewhere to go. So for over the past 3 years, there has been a lot of groundwork done to increase the likelihood that when someone is having a behavioral health crisis, they are given a behavioral health and compassionate response. And so, as I mentioned, we do that through various approaches. So I'm going to briefly highlight some of the things we have done thus far. So in terms of within the community, we hold Marcus Alert stakeholder group meetings. As I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we have over 80 members on our stakeholder group. So that allows us to bring everyone together. We focus on different things during the meetings. So meetings may consist of updates so that we can look at the data and essentially look at how we're effectively carrying out our crisis response system. It may also consist of us coming together and doing such fun activities such as DIY self-care kits for the community. So we do hold those on a quarterly basis. Our next one, given that it is the summertime and with implementation, we aim to have our next one this September. In addition to that, we are very big on community. I was born and raised here in Arlington County, particularly in Johnson's Hill, and I still reside here in Arlington County with God's strength and grace. And so I am really big, not just only on family foundation, but also community foundation. And so I think we can all agree that it really starts within our community, and community is everything. And that requires partnership, that requires unification. And so I personally take that seriously, as well as my supervisor, Deborah Warren, and all of my colleagues, as well as you all. So that is why we find such great joy, and particularly myself, of partnering with the NAACP, civic associations, and historic Black churches in the community. With that being said, this system is for all. So this system is for our community. And we want to ensure that everyone is well informed, and not just informed, but also are given that support, not just in that moment, whether it's them coming to a community event and them gaining information, but also linkage to services. So to effectively ensure that we participate in a lot of community events. If you see me, you may have seen me at several community events within the county, but I try to do as many as possible, as well as community presentations. Along with the community, I have to work closely with our CIT coordinator, Ms. Yolanda Lester, to essentially ensure that we are reestablishing and strengthening our partnerships with local agencies. So For example, one of the things that we have been able to do over the past close to 2 years now is aid and reestablish a relationship with Pentagon Police, as well as CIA Police, as well as Metro Transit Police. So considering that Arlington County is so unique and we have all of these different agencies around us, even though they're federal, it is super imperative to us to work closely with them so that we can ensure that there is effective diversion and that individuals are getting the proper services within the county. In terms of marketing, we have been doing a lot of marketing, trying to get more knowledge out about Marcus Alert. So doing a video series. I had the pleasure of doing a segment with NBC4 Washington on the implementation of Marcus Alert. We have created more resource guides and pocket cards for law enforcement and first responders, making sure that they have information when they're out in the field so that they can effectively and properly divert individuals. In addition to that, going back to the framework, with the system, we carry it out through protocols, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. And so with the protocols, as I mentioned, with it starting all at the ECC, I personally had to ensure that they were readily trained, not just trained one time, but receive that continuous training, in addition to making sure that all of their policies and procedures are updated so that when onboarding staff comes, they can essentially be ready to learn how to actually carry out the system. So that requires a lot of coordination, consistency, and partnership. And so along with updating policies and procedures to ensure it aligns with the Marcus Alert system, some of the things that we did was finalize the Marcus Alert urgency triage and response levels. So essentially, that is what call takers and dispatchers refer to when calls come through 911 for them to determine if it is a 988 call or a local services call. Within the local services levels 3 and 4, they would also need to determine if it will solely be a behavioral health response or a co-response, or if it's more of an individual that has access to a weapon, is readily available to use that weapon, and is having an active suicide attempt, then that would require law enforcement's lead until the matter is de-escalated and they have cleared the scene safe for behavioral health and EMS for medical support. So I share those examples just to give you a better idea of how complex the system is, but how timely it is, and the beauty of the system and how it's really going to strengthen our crisis continuum of care. In addition to that, one of the things that I did from the moment I joined DHS back in 2022 was I hold a master's of social work. So I'm a supervisee in social work. So I have all of the mental health experience and knowledge, but I wanted to learn particularly more so a law enforcement's perspective. Even having a degree in criminal justice, I wanted to get a better idea of how law enforcement will grasp the knowledge from CIT training and actually apply it when they're out in the scene, in the field. So I took the opportunity to become a certified CIT coordinator and also a CIT trainer. So I can now, I'm a part of the CIT team. So I'm an instructor. And aside from that, I'm also teaching a Marcus Alert segment in CIT to continuously inform our first responders on our system. As I mentioned earlier, we've done a lot of research and discovery. So in terms of management of the system, it requires a lot of data management. So that is essentially the way that we are going to determine, one of the ways that we will determine how we're effectively carrying out our system. And so with that being said, one of the things that we did was we conducted 5 focus groups over the course of 2 years to essentially get feedback from our community. So it's all about the community. We may be experts in terms of providing support, but it's super imperative that no matter what role you're in as a community advocate and servant, that you seek the input of community members, because at the end of the day, individuals in our community know what they need. They just need the support, guidance, and that maybe additional leadership to guide them to getting those supports. So doing those 5 focus groups were very beneficial, and we were able to take that information, actually review it with our stakeholders, and try to figure out what additional efforts we can carry out within our crisis continuum of care. In addition to that, as I mentioned, we've updated our research and discovery, which I mentioned earlier. We look at all of the demographics, services sought in our community, et cetera, breaking it down through to zip codes so that we can see where the gaps and barriers are. In terms of the ECC, I've already went over how they have been readily trained, how we have done more additional supports to essentially make sure that they are effectively triaging calls. And one of those efforts were modifying the emergency medical dispatch mental health card. So essentially that is the EMD mental health card that call takers and dispatchers refer to when calls come through 911. And within that card, it now reflects vital point questions. So they can actually ask specific questions that highlights whether or not it's going to be a level 4, which is law enforcement, or level 1, or level 2, which is calls diverted to 988, or level 3, which may be led by behavioral health, and then law enforcement can provide safety support if needed. And so within that card, on top of the vital point questions, we've also highlighted the verbiage from our urgency triage so that for consistency purposes, our call takers and dispatchers can become more familiarized with how to determine which level is appropriate. And so all of our call takers and dispatchers, they have received that modified EMD mental health card. They received training on it, and it is now enclosed in a resource binder that is at each pod within the ECC 911 that consists of the EMD mental health card, the urgency triage and response levels, a script that call takers and dispatchers can read verbatim when transferring calls to 988, as well as a little information on the services that 988 can offer, in addition to the diversion flow chart so that they can see how calls flow from the PSAP, the public primary safety answering point, and from the PSAP ECC 911 to the regional crisis call center, and how those calls flow into the local services. So all of those, the vast knowledge that our call takers and dispatchers have received thus far is enclosed in that binder for that effective triaging. In terms of our foundation from a local standpoint, I personally have to meet monthly with our regional Marcus Alert coordinators within Region 2, in addition to our regional partners. So that consists of the Northern Virginia Regional Projects Office, as well as I mentioned earlier, our regional mobile partner, CR2 Reach, as well as HopeLink Behavioral Health, which manages, as I mentioned, 988 calls. So again, it takes that effective collaboration and consistency to ensure that we are actually strengthening and carrying out our crisis continuum of care. In addition to that, we do meet on a leadership level within DHS, where essentially we meet on a monthly basis, excuse me, to review Marcus Alert cases, highlighting which calls may have been appropriate for a 988 or a local response. So we will be having actually another Marcus Alert meeting, leadership meeting this week with our regional partners. In addition to that, I work closely with our public safety IT team to create a dashboard, which essentially highlights all of our behavioral health calls. So I am able to look at which calls were transferred to 988, which calls law enforcement responded to, and essentially looking at, the time in terms of how quickly they're responding, determining if it was appropriate, so that we can see how we can continue to improve and work more collaboratively together. And so that is going to be an extreme help in terms of the management of our data. On a weekly basis, myself and my other colleagues within DHS Behavioral Health Division, we meet with ACPD, Arlington County Police Department, particularly the DHS and APS liaison, Lieutenant Eliseo Pilco. He is also an Arlingtonian. He has a vast amount of experience working in the schools, being a former DARE instructor, but now coming in and now helping us effectively carry out this system. So it's been a true honor and privilege to work with him and Deputy Chief Wayne Vincent as we have carried out this system. In addition to those efforts, we have done a lot of promoting of 988 and the emergency health profile. So the emergency health profile is a part of Rapid SOS. Rapid SOS lies within the computer-aided dispatch, so CAD, which is the system that call takers and dispatchers refer to when calls come into 911. And so within the Rapid SOS system lies the emergency health profile. And that profile is a voluntary database that allows individuals to share any pertinent information that they may want 911 to be aware of, so that 911 can relay that information to first responders when that individual might be experiencing a crisis. So essentially, the number within the profile, from the moment it calls 911, all of that information within the profile will automatically populate within the CAD system, so that call takers and dispatchers know the appropriate response. So for example, let's say that it is an individual with any form of disability. It is automatic for us to ensure that REACH, our regional mobile partners, will co-respond with our local behavioral health so that that person gets as much support as needed. Another example, let's say that it requires providing support to children. While our MOST team doesn't technically specialize in providing support to children at this moment, we can lean on our CR2 team to provide that support if needed, in terms of like a in-person response, in addition to our local emergency services department within DHS. So essentially, the system with the profile is so unique because we are limited in terms of providing information to first responders. So therefore, I think that it's vital for individuals to be able to voluntarily share what information they want first responders to know so that they're properly served. I've already went over how we have improved our data collection within the county. So what is next for Arlington County, particularly Marcus Alert? So there will be continued management of the system with my leadership, and I am under the leadership of Deborah Warren, our Deputy Director and CSB Executive Director for Arlington County. It will also allow us, with the Marcus Alert system, the funding that we receive from the state of $600,000 will allow us to expand our mobile outreach support team most. So with that expansion, currently the hours are Monday through Friday from 1 to 9 p.m. With that expansion, the hours will be Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. once we hire the second most team. So the current most team consists of a clinician and a peer recovery specialist. Once that second team is hired, that team will consist of a clinician and a case manager. So we are super thrilled about this expansion, not only just with the exceptional performance of most, but given the uniqueness of the program, not only providing crisis supports, but also outreach supports. And then in addition to the stellar partnership that they have established with our partners thus far. In addition to that, there will be continuous ongoing marketing, collaborating with our partners and community outreach. So currently right now, I had the privilege of hiring 2 Marcus Alert interns, our new and first Marcus Alert interns. And so I'm working closely with them to look at some more additional marketing approaches that we can carry out in our system, particularly looking at our children. I think we can all agree that they need us now more than ever. I'm a mother of a 7.5-year-old son. And I think that for several years, there has been extreme things going on within our community that is affecting the younger generation, our future. And so my overall goal in working with these brilliant interns is to look at ways that we can better market to make sure that our youth, our children, are aware of these policies and procedures within our county and our crisis response system. In addition, as I mentioned, collaborating with our partners, that is everything to me and my supervisor and colleagues. And then in addition to that, community outreach. So I plan to be at the Arlington County Fair in August all weekend. So if you happen to come to the fair, please feel free to stop by my booth in the public safety section to say hello. And then lastly, continue education for enhancement. So education is everything, speaking for myself, and I'm a firm believer that there's so much to learn. No one knows everything. You learn something new every day, and that's the beauty of education. It's always something new to learn, to better assess not just only your professional expertise and things that you do within the community and carrying out your role, but also too from a collaboration standpoint. So one of the things that I had the opportunity of doing this past June was attending the International Co-Responder Alliance Conference in Omaha. And at this conference, I had the opportunity to attend it with Lieutenant Pilko, our DHS and APS liaison for ACPD. Heather Horan, she works for the ECC 911. And some of my colleagues here in DHS, Michelle Pearson, who is the supervisor for most, Michael Keene, who is a former ACPD officer and now works for DHS and manages our Treatment on Wheels program that provides supports to unhoused individuals, and his supervisor, America Caro. And I tell you, just being not only together, but being able to collectively share our thoughts after each training throughout the conference and sitting together at the dinner table and really strategizing on how we can continue to work more closely together to pour into our community. It was a beautiful thing. It will be continuous. And those are the opportunities that I really look forward to more and more, that continue education with our partners. So those are some of the things that we have done to effectively implement our Marcus Alert system. One thing I do just want to say is, while the system has been implemented, this is a phased approach. It is going to take, we're going to take it day by day. There will be things that we will learn as we continue to carry out our crisis continuum of care. There will be things that we need to improve. There may be things that requires more feedback from our community. But I'm a firm believer that at the end of the day, the time is now, and we have this wonderful, unique, timely, and long overdue system in place. And I think that it is a great way to continue to ensure that there is equitable services for all, to ensure that everyone has that opportunity to live abundantly and get the services that they need within this community. And so I will stop sharing my screen. So I just want to thank you so much for the opportunity. And if you have any questions, please feel free to send them my way.
Awesome. Thank you, Tiffany. I have a couple questions. I want to start with some that we got in the chat. So this first one is, could you please elaborate on the handoff from 911 to the crisis call center? What should we know about law enforcement and the crisis team agreement? I think you kind of touched on that, so you may have probably answered these. Some of these came in before. Anything you want to add on that question?
Yeah, so I would love, if you don't mind, I would love to give an example. So as I mentioned, we have the urgency triage and response levels. It is a 4-tier level triage. So levels 1 through 4, level 1 and 2, let me back it up a little bit. Levels 1 through 3 are behavioral health led. Okay, so I just want to clarify that. Level 4 is law enforcement led with the support of behavioral health and EMS if needed. So within level 1 and 2, this can be simply a distress caller, maybe having suicidal thoughts, but no active behaviors or intent to carry out that plan. That is a call that is appropriate for the Regional Crisis Call Center 988. Let's say that that person is exhibiting those same symptoms, but they may be having minor self-injurious behaviors that does not require medical support. So not the support of EMS. That is a call that 988 can support on, and then they will dispatch regional mobile teams to provide that in-person care, given the increase in terms of having those minor self-injurious behaviors. Level 3 is someone that may be having the active psychosis, may have access to a weapon. So clearly we need support in terms of safety, but most importantly, we need to ensure that that individual receives the proper behavioral health support. So that is more so a co-response. However, as I mentioned, that level is solely led by behavioral health. So that is how, just giving you a little breakdown of the levels. Now, in terms of crisis intervention training, that training is managed by DHS. It is a 40-hour training that allows first responders, just not law enforcement, particularly the police department, the sheriff's department, fire, Metro Transit, Pentagon Police, etc. So essentially, they can come to this training, 40-hour training, to receive any information on mental health and psychotic disorders. They learn active listening skills. They learn de-escalation tactics. They have the opportunity to learn all of this information from subject matter experts, not just locally, but also some of our regional partners, such as NAMI, Northern Virginia. And so they get all of that knowledge throughout the week, Monday through Friday, more so heavily. And in addition to that, they also have the opportunity to take that knowledge and the skills that they learn and apply it through role play scenarios. So I do just want to highlight that the scenarios that we use are actual things that have occurred within our community. So real cases with the role play scenarios, they starting Wednesday. So basic role play scenarios going into intermediate on Thursday and advanced on Friday. And so, as I mentioned earlier, being an instructor, we have a big pool of CIT instructors. We're able to be the role players ourselves so that we can actually show them what it could be like when a person is experiencing crisis. And these are not just behavioral health professionals, these are law enforcement professionals too. So we can, we play the role players in addition to giving feedback to each student as they're going through the role play scenarios. Because one of the things we make clear when they're coming through the program, when an individual in the community sees that CIT pin on your vest or however you present it, we want to make sure that we're upholding all of the values and the true commitment that we have to our community in an appropriate manner. So we take our CIT program very seriously. As I mentioned, it's managed by Miss Yolanda Lester, and we give that critical feedback so that they can understand how they're actually thriving throughout the training. Because one of the things that we make clear is if they don't show that they can actually carry out those skills, they cannot pass the training. And so we make that very clear. It requires their full attention and dedication. They have to be at the training all week. So that is one of the things that we uphold very closely in terms of having our CIT training a valuable asset to this community. And I will announce on behalf of ACPD that as of now, we have over 80% of our ACPD patrol officers CIT trained, which is a true honor and privilege.
Yeah, that's awesome and incredible. And it is an honor. I know most communities don't get anywhere near that level of training. So yeah, it's something to be proud of. Another question from the chat was, could you reiterate the time of day that most will be available with the second team?
Yes, so I do just want to reiterate, currently they operate Monday through Friday from 1 to 9 p.m. Once the second most team is hired, they have not been hired yet. We are in the phases of the interviewing process, the hiring process. Once they are hired, the new hours of operation will be Monday through Friday from 7:30 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay, that's great. Tell us, where is Arlington relative, and as far as like our implementation and planning, where are we relative to the rest of the region and Commonwealth?
So I humbly say that we are doing a lot of great things in this county. I'm so proud of not just this region, but this state. So I will say that first and foremost, it has taken a lot of time, patience, commitment to ensure that we have effectively carried out this system in terms of getting it off the ground and implementing it, right? Starting those implementation stages. But in terms of where we are, I think that we are doing a great job in terms of our community outreach. We have been out in the community, particularly myself. I do a lot of community presentations, events to ensure that our community is properly updated and educated on what we have going on in the community. And I humbly say that just given the feedback from our regional partners, DBHDS and our Region 2 partners, just their feedback as I report out on what we're doing in the county. I would also say from an enhancement standpoint, we have done a lot of good work in collaborating with our partners. So one of the things that I've found is a lot of other localities, not just within our region, but statewide, they have not taken as much steps to actually collaborate with community organizations such as the NAACP, civic associations, et cetera. And I've learned that through my time of actually getting out in the community, not just through our monthly meetings, but I had the opportunity to actually visit Richmond. I personally wanted to sit at the table and communicate with the subject matter experts that essentially carried out Marcus Alert first, implemented the system. And most importantly, that was where Marcus David Peters passed. And so sitting at that table with them and conversing with them, I've learned that we have done a lot of great work within our county, and we will continue to do so.
Awesome. I want to do one last question and try to sneak in a couple updates from our committees. And this question comes from Ms. Haywood. She says, was there a process for determining the hours of operation, and are there plans to extend beyond 9 p.m.?
Can you say the last piece, part of that question?
Sure. Any plans to extend beyond 9 p.m. in the future?
Thank you. So in terms of determining the hours of operation, we were able to determine that by tracking the behavioral health calls that come through 911. So going back to the the implementation of MOST effective July 31st of last year, that is how those hours of operation were determined, as well as the expansion hours, which will now, allow the team to operate 7:30 to 9. So essentially with that expansion and the two teams, there's going to be a little overlap. So the new team will operate 7:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Whereas the current MOST team operates from 1 to 9. So it'll be that nice little overlap. But essentially everything that we implement within the county, particularly DHS, we look at our data. We're data driven. In addition to data, just not numbers, statistics, right? Community input. So that is how we determine those hours of operation.
All right, awesome. Tiffany, it's been an honor to have you here with us this evening. You're very humble, but I want to give you your flowers just for the work that you've done. I believe that Arlington is leaps and bounds ahead of our neighbors, both in the region and the Commonwealth, just based off of our conversations and what I learned. I want to thank you, recognize you, and salute you for all that you're doing. I know that there's a tremendous effort that often goes unseen. So I want to publicly thank you for all of your work, but also synthesizing the information tonight in a way that was digestible and understandable. Not very many people were able to do that. So thank you so much for being here with us. You can count on NAACP being a strong partner both now and in the future.
Thank you so much, Mike. I really appreciate you. And thank you for all that you do for the community. You are a true asset, and I hope you know that. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you too. All right. I'm going to move us through some committee updates and we will adjourn. So let's start with education. Any updates that you'd like to provide to our membership this evening?
Nothing at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move to economic development and labor. You got a couple high-profile events coming up. Anything you'd like to say to our membership this evening?
I do, Mr. President. We had the veterans hiring event scheduled for this month. We had to postpone that event because of the parking situation on Fort Myers to the new location, which was the Space Officer Club. So once the club is renovated, we'll establish a new date to host that event. We have on the 27th, we have Understanding the Federal Hiring Process. This is a webinar going from 10 o'clock until 1 o'clock. Right now, we have about 35 people registered. And following on the 31st, we have a financial literacy class, and we currently have about 15 people registered. for that event. Here's a special announcement. This email came in about a couple of hours ago. We submitted a grant application to Virginia Housing to assist home buyers in Arlington with reducing their mortgage rate. We were notified today that $7 million was approved, and we have an $5,000 for marketing and advertising that program. Our next
Hey, Gary.
executive meeting, I'll go into detail on that plan, and we'll be
Hey, Gary,
building the program.
can I jump in real quick?
Yes.
Either your internet or my internet broke up. I just wonder, could you just repeat that last announcement just for everyone? It kind of broke up a little bit.
Yes, back in May, we applied for a grant to Virginia Housing to assist home buyers with down payment assistance. It's called the SPARK program, sponsoring partnerships and revitalizing communities. We were notified a couple of hours ago that we have been approved for the $7,700,000 grant, with an additional $5,000 for marketing and advertising. Our next executive meeting, I will go into detail on our program. We will add the process of the program on our website. I've already talked to the communications chair, and we'll start working on that as soon as this week. And
awesome.
Now that we have the grant approved, we should be hosting our first home buyer seminar late August or early September. That's all I have.
All right. I don't know if you all caught that. I wanted him to repeat it just so that you could hear, but our branch, as you know, is one of the most active branches in the entire country. We heard that even from our state conference president this week. And so, Mr. Economic Development and Labor Chair, I'm proud of all the work that you've done. You really joined the executive committee. You hit the ground running. This is an incredible accomplishment, not only for the branch, but for our community. And it's because of your leadership. So I salute you, and I honor all of the hard work that you've done to make this happen. I know that you put in a lot of effort. So congratulations, and I can't wait to see the impact that we have on the community.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I want to move us to political action, who had to step away, but she did put something in the chat. And this was, she says she would like to provide an update on the door-to-door voter engagement events that are happening at affordable housing properties. And I am going to drop a link in the chat. We have MOUs with almost all of the affordable housing providers in Arlington. We're working on the last few, but an incredible event if you want to get involved in door-to-door voter registration. And political action, always doing a ton of work behind the scenes. I don't see Pastor Davis. Sister Dunkley, anything you'd like to say from Religious Affairs?
Yeah, I know we met, they met on July the 2nd. First VP Younger and Secretary Wanda and Tia Alford. They met, and we set a date for the back to school event, which is August the 17th from 10 to 12. So, and also the flyer that was made by Lear is being prepared. A draft, we saw the draft, so that's going to be sent out. So that's if the secretary, if you have anything else to add to the meeting.
No, I think you covered it, and more information will be on the flyer in terms of drop-off location for supplies and a ActBlue link if people want to donate financially.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So save.
Yeah. So that's it. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned is right. Save the date. August 17th will be our annual backpack drive. Lots of information will be forthcoming on donation sites and financial contributions. I know we're looking to raise about $1,500 as a branch to be able to provide those much needed supplies for all of Arlington students. So stay tuned, more information to come. We'd love to see you on August 17th in the community doing the good work. So thank you, Sister Dunkley, for all that you're doing as well.
You're welcome.
Membership, anything that you'd like to mention this evening?
There is. Thank you so much, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. I wanted to let everybody know, and in fact, I'll drop it in the chat here. And I guess I don't have my video on. Okay, I'm putting my video on now. I'm going to go ahead and drop it in the chat here. You should have received, if you are a member of our branch, you should have received your digital membership card in email. And so what that means is that you have a digital image of your card. It goes into, and I don't know how many people use this, but there's Google Wallet and there's, is it Apple Pay, Apple Wallet? So that card actually gets saved there, and it has your membership number on it. It has your name, your unit number, which should say 7047-B, because that's the Arlington branch, and it has your expiration date. So a lot of people have told me, I can't find my card, I don't know where it is, and I forgot what my expiration date is. And every year, you know, we have to re-up unless you're a silver or a gold or a bronze lifetime member. And then if you're a fully paid lifetime member, then you don't actually have to pay anymore. You're paid for life. But so I want everybody to please look in your email and make sure you got your card. If you didn't get your card, it might mean that your membership expired. And if that's the case, you can reach out to me, or you can reach out to the national membership. And in fact, probably the best thing to do is if you think that there's a mistake, definitely reach out to me. We can contact membership and sort it out. But if you think that maybe you didn't renew, I also have put in the chat the renewal link. So please go ahead. You can jump online using that link, and you can renew your membership. And if you need a copy of your membership number, or you need to know what your membership number is, because you do when you do need to put it in when you renew, just give me a call and I'll be happy to give it to you. So that's that exciting news. And again, if you didn't receive that card, it means you are not a current paid member of our branch and the National NAACP. So please do that. The other thing I just wanted to remind everybody is that, and there will be some communications about this, but in August is the Arlington County Fair, and we always have a booth. Last year it was a very prominent table, and so if you would like to volunteer, we would love to have you. And the county fair runs, oh, I just had it up and I just lost it. It runs in August, and it runs from, if you'll bear with me, I will just Google it. The Arlington County Fair runs from August 14th to the 18th. We generally need people on the from the 15th to the 18th. And so if you would like to go ahead and volunteer now, you feel free to reach out to me, Assistant Secretary, at arlingtonnaacp.com. And we'll be putting something out also in communications that you get. So that's all I have, Mr. President.
All right. Thanks for all that you're doing, Madam Assistant Secretary. I appreciate all of your efforts. All right. Last but certainly not least is a very important update from our Housing Committee. Mr. Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Heminger, and good evening, everybody. So I am very excited to announce and talk about tonight an amicus brief that the NAACP Arlington branch submitted to the Circuit Court of Virginia here in Arlington in connection with the lawsuit challenging the legality of the county's recent expanded housing options ordinance, otherwise known as missing middle. In addition to being the branch's housing committee chair, I was also engaged by the branch as outside counsel to prepare and submit that legal filing. So just some background on what the lawsuit is. So there are 9 homeowners who have sued the county, challenging the legality of the expanded housing options or missing middle ordinance. They don't just allege that the county was wrong to do it. They allege that the county acted outside of its legal authority to do it. And that's something that implicates the interest of our branch, because we are fully aware of the history of restrictive and exclusionary housing practices here in Arlington. And we want to make sure that the county, by working with us and other community stakeholders, has the authority to do something about it, to fix the harms and stop them from recurring based on things that the county actually itself did for many, many decades as Arlington's residential neighborhoods were being set up and as exclusionary practices were being enforced. So I was engaged as outside counsel to prepare this brief for the county. I did so pro bono, so the branch got my services as a Virginia lawyer without any compensation on my part. I was happy to do it. And the brief that we filed explained the historical perspective of people of color in Arlington in the first half of the 20th century going through to today. So most of the brief is dedicated to explaining the history of exclusionary and restrictive housing practices in Arlington, connecting that history with why you see so many neighborhoods, especially low density residential neighborhoods in Arlington, that have it's so much of a high share of white households relative to the county as a whole. And then how ending exclusionary zoning and loosening some of those restrictions as a matter of law can create housing opportunities for people of color and make our neighborhoods more inclusive. And so we submitted this brief, but because we're not a party to the lawsuit, so we're not aware that we have legal rights to assert in the proceedings, our opportunity was to participate as what's called amicus curiae, which is Latin for friend of the court. Lawyers like their Latin. And in doing that, we had to seek the court's permission to file the brief, and the court had to make a determination that the brief would be helpful to the court in deciding the case. And sure enough, the court agreed with us. So I appeared before the judge overseeing the case last Friday. The court granted our motion to have the brief filed and considered in order to help the courts apply the law to the facts of the case. So it was truly my honor to represent the branch in this capacity. It is my sincere hope that the court reviews our brief and finds it helpful in rendering a fair and just judgment in the case. And I also want to just thank everybody in the branch as part of our housing committee, our executive committee, for all the helpful feedback that they gave in shaping this important legal filing. So we have a lot going on within our housing committee, much more work to do when it comes to making housing more equitable and inclusive in Arlington. But I wanted to share this brief update as a big milestone for some of the ways in which the NAACP is taking action to ensure that our local leaders have the authority to do what they need to do to make housing better in Arlington. And I'll go ahead and drop a link to the brief in the chat here.
All right, that is incredible, folks. I don't know if you caught what he said, but he did this work pro bono. So, Mr. Chair, I'm just grateful. I don't know if you had a chance to read through the brief, but we did push it out. It's world class in every imaginable way. So if you didn't get a chance to look through it, I encourage you to do so. And I am hopeful and optimistic that considering the judge did allow us to file that brief. So, Mr. Chair, thank you for all that you're doing, and for our members, if you haven't had an opportunity to read it, please find a couple minutes to read through that. So, thank you, Mr. Chair. Really appreciate it. And stay tuned. More important details on the way. Sorry, my battery's dying, so I'm moving around. In my haste, I forgot to recognize our past president and environmental climate justice chair, also doing important work. So, Mr. Chair, would you like to provide an update to the membership?
Thanks, Mr. President. Just briefly, I'll put it all in the chat. You can read it. Just to approve budget from the county as it relates to environment and climate justice, the environment areas. Also some information on some of the plans we intend to do later this year and some of our partnerships to include water sampling along Columbia Pike, engagement with FAC, having another conversation with the climate policy officer. But I just want to take an opportunity, a point of privilege, and for those that may be wondering, all the work that our housing committee chair did Yes, it was pro bono. Yes, he's a member of this branch, but you also need to know that none of this was done without the consent of the state conference of the NAACP or national NAACP. They reviewed this brief. They looked at this document. They knew what we were doing. So we don't, again, the NAACP is not here at the Arlington branch kind of working in silos. This went to the highest levels of the NAACP. So you need to know that about this brief and the good work that's going on. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, thank you. I second that. And yeah, I just want to supplement everything that you said. Not only national, but the president and CEO personally reviewed it. And there's another instance that the president and CEO, general counsel also reviewed that we'll likely be talking about at our next general membership meeting. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pull myself down just to see if anyone has any updates before we adjourn. Would any members like to make any pressing updates? Okay, great. I want to thank you all for joining us. I know your time is valuable and precious. It's one of the most valuable things that we could ask of you. So I thank you for joining us. I thank you for being in this fight with us. We're moving the line forward every single day in ways seen and unseen. And it's because we have a strong membership here in this community. So I want to thank you on behalf of our executive committee for always having our back and always helping to advance the work of the association. So thank you all for joining, and we'll see you in August at the Backpack Drive, at the county fair, at some of our economic development and labor events. Lots of ways to get involved and plugged in. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.